Mr. Satyarthi, thank you for speaking to us on NDTV. You're only the second Indian Nobel Peace Laureate, the first, of course, being Mother Teresa over 35 years ago. And you're always keen to point out that you're the first and only Desi-born Indian laureate. Why is that important to you?
It's important to every single child. It's important to the children who are deprived of their childhood freedom and education. And most importantly, it's important to all my fellow Indian sisters and brothers. It's a great moment of pride for all Indians, not only for me.
Now, one of the luxuries of being a Nobel laureate is that it gives you a platform to address issues that are of concern to you in your country and the world. And previous laureates like Amartya Sen and Mr. Yunus from Bangladesh, Mohammad Yunus, have done so with some success in South Asia. If there's one thing that you could change in India now with your new influence and high-profile stature, what would that be?
I have always been an ordinary activist, and I wanted to carry on like that because my fight is on. My fight is on and it will continue. I cannot sit quiet even for a single moment if a child is in danger, if a child is in slavery, if a child is sold and bought like animal, if a child is out of school. My fight will on.
Then you're going to be fighting for a long time, Mr. Satyarthi?
I will fight for the last breath of my life. But by that time, I'm sure that at least few things would happen. One thing is that you won't see child slavery. And I tell you that you in your lifetime, and definitely your children will read in the history books that there was an evil in India and there was an evil in the world named child slavery, named child labor. That would become the history in my lifetime.
Now, coming to India, the Child Rights Amendments Bill 2012, a bill that's close to your heart, has been pending in Parliament. This winter session has not seen much work. Parliament has been deadlocked because of the comments of a minister in the government, communal comments of a minister in the government. Do you hope now that your award and the focus on your award will actually spur our parliamentarians? Is there a message you have for our parliamentarians that you'd like to give them through NDTV?
I have already urged the Indian Parliament and the Parliament members to please pass this amendment. Indian children and the children anywhere in the world can never wait. Children are today. Children are now. Every single moment is important. Every single day is important, more important. So it is such an important issue which has to be done, which has to be resolved. And I'm quite hopeful that the Parliament will pass this bill soon.
But the amendment is a very progressive one because it, 1, bans child labour until the age of 14, 2, it bans hazardous employment between the ages of 14 and 18, and 3, most importantly, in my opinion, it increases penalties on employers. So it makes life difficult for employers going forward. But do you think that is feasible in a country like India?
Not at all. If the law is there, then it's a very strong tool. It's a very strong weapon in the hands of those who wanted to implement the law. And that is civil society organizations, judiciary, the government agencies who really genuinely wanted to do something, and the children and the parents, for everyone. It's a very strong weapon to fight against those kind of things. We will do our best, actually. We will do our best to ensure that this law and all laws pertaining to children's issues are properly implemented.
Mr. Satyarthi, you're receiving the most prestigious award in the world, yet you have yet to receive any recognition from your government back home in your country in India. Why is that? And do you think that Indian activists need to first get global recognition before they can be taken, or before they are taken seriously in India?
I don't know about it. I never thought on it. I never thought about Indian honors, and I never thought about Nobel Peace Prize. I keep on working. I will keep on working, as I said. But India does not mean only a few people. India means the poor people who have a lot of love and respect for the people like us. Though we are sometimes unnoticed, unrecognized, unknown to many people, but for those whose children are missing, for those whose children are trafficked and enslaved, they have a lot of hope in us, and we have a lot of love and respect for them. So it goes on like that. And that is my country. That is my people who need me. And I need them. And the biggest strength I always draw from those parents and those children. And I said that each time when I free a child and the first smile of freedom appears on her face, I see the glimpse of God in it. The parents, the mother who lost all the hope that her son will ever come back and sit in her lap, when the first tear comes from her eyes, the tear of joy, I feel that I am being liberated. So I have been liberated thousands of times through these children and through these parents.
And those are awards and honors that are priceless.
That is much, much bigger than any award.
Mr. Satyarthi, the NGO world has changed enormously, especially in India since you entered it. On one hand, we've seen huge political and legislative empowerment of NGOs through the NAC and acts like the RTI. On the other hand, budgets available to NGOs have increased substantially. So a career in that sector is no longer one where one has to make large sacrifices. Are these changes largely for the better?
Definitely, because the change begins with the consciousness. The change begins with awareness about the issue, and change begins with some sort of concern, and that has increased, that has grown and deepened over the years, and that is the most important thing. Because when I started working 34 years ago, child labor was a non-issue. Nobody was using these phrases. Even the Indian law, the Indians law was enacted in 1985. It came into being in 1986. So the 86 law came 5 or 6 years later than when I started working. So it took some time, but it was the most difficult time when there was no awareness. And let me tell you that Mahatma Gandhi has said beautiful things about the people like me. He said that first they ignore, then they laugh, as you are laughing, but not in that sense. Then they laugh, then they oppose, then they fight, and eventually you will win. So this is my journey, and I won't say that I have won, but eventually I will win. And my victory is the victory of all children in my country and all across the world.
But over the last few months, ever since we've had a new government, there have been articles in the press where RTI activists have been complaining that the Modi government is stonewalling their queries. Some people believe that the NGO activist community really achieved much more influence, too much influence under the UPA and Sonia Gandhi, and that the new government should work to lessen their power. What are your views on this?
Well, I would say that NGOs have very strong role to play, definitely. But their agendas must be driven by the people whom they are working for and working with, not from some other sources, not from others' prescriptions. The agendas should be our local agendas, what I call the Desi agendas. So that's one thing. But definitely the government has to work hand in hand with civil society organizations. Luckily, India has a very strong government now, a strong leadership now, and I'm quite hopeful that the situation would arrive then when the common people, the civil society organizations, and the government will work hand in hand. Because eventually we have to make India a great India. The India which is the leader in many aspects, must emerge. And that leadership cannot come in isolation by one or other segment of society. Everyone has to work together. And the binding force of this should be the moral force, the force of morality. And that will come when the people, the government agencies, the politicians, religious organizations, institutions, NGOs, businesses, everyone should work in hand in hand. So we have to make a strong India. We have to make a prosperous India. And as the present government is trying, India has to become a clean India. But all these things should also lead towards making India a child-friendly India. When I say child-friendly India, we talk of a vision for next 50 years. Because the children who are born now, they will matter for the whole of their life, for the 50 years, even more. So we have to make a child-friendly India from now onwards.
So you talk about India being a powerful India. That means, in most layman terms, it means economic power. Can we have economic growth if children are not getting an education?
I said that economic power is one, knowledge power is another, and moral power is there. So these three powers should come hand in hand. So what we call Lakshmi, Saraswati, and Durga. So these powers should come together, and they will merge and make India the great India, which all of us have been prouding for so many years and will keep on proud forever.
Now, talking about your life as an activist, you studied engineering, yet you chose to give that up, an unconventional decision for a child or a youngster in the 80s, in India in the 80s then. You gave up your job as a college lecturer to work for the Bandhua Mukti Morcha. In hindsight, obviously sitting here in Oslo about to accept the Nobel Peace Prize for 2014, that was the right decision. But what was it like then? What did your family say, for example?
When I saw the first child working right at the gate of my school's door, I decided I will work for the children like him. Though it was not very clear. My thoughts were not yet shaped. But eventually they grew. But the seed was there. So I never regretted for that.
Everybody has heard about Malala's brush with death, but the Nobel Committee actually cited you as saying that Kailash Satyarthi has shown great personal courage while focusing on the grave exploitation of children for financial gain. They were talking about the numerous attempts or the attacks on your life, correct? And you faced a lot of them, not just you, even your family, as close as 2011.
Yes, and even later on. The 2001 was very, very severe, very serious, because me and my son Bhuvan, both of us were lying on the streets, and the people just took us to hospital. Somehow we were saved. That was the most severe. But there were many more after and late and before. So it has been there. But these things cannot deter someone who really wanted to remain a child and want to work for children whom he loves or she loves.
Mr. Satyarthi, I think everybody would agree that children belong in schools, not factories, but there's often the question of economic necessity. Now, our viewers, NDTV viewers, have been writing and sending us some questions for you. One of our viewers, Tamanna Nasir, writes, how do you deal with cases where circumstances force young kids to become the bread earner for the family? And how do you feel, how does it make you feel when you have to take that away from them?
First of all, the children are never responsible for these circumstances, what anyone can talk about. Children are the victims of poverty, but also the victims of loss of their childhood, denial of their education and health and future. So why are we further victimizing them if they are born in poverty? It is not their sin. It is not their fault that they are born in a family where the parents don't find jobs. But why we are giving jobs to the children where so many adults are jobless? So many adults are jobless. Their very parents are jobless. And we prefer the children in jobs because they are the cheapest source of labor, they are free labor. So I would request that withdraw a child, remove a child from child labor, and that vacancy should be filled by the able-bodied family member of that child or from someone else. So we have to break the vicious circle. I have been advocating for years that there is a vicious circle between three things: poverty, child labor and illiteracy. We have to break it. They have cause and consequence relationship, or a kind of chicken and egg relationship between each of them. So you cannot, of course, eliminate child labor without education, but you cannot you cannot give education to children without withdrawing them from child labor. And so is the case of poverty. You can never eliminate poverty without eliminating child labor and without imparting good quality education for all children. So these three things go hand in hand.
And finally, Mr. Satyarthi, the Nobel Committee regards it as an important point that a Hindu and a Muslim, an Indian and a Pakistani join in a common struggle for child rights, for children's education and against extremism. So basically, you've now been recast as a peace envoy. They've made you an envoy for South Asian peace. What is this like for you? And is this a difficult task right now, considering that we're in a week where we've seen Indian and Pakistani soldiers, armies exchanging fire across the border, and dozens of Indian soldiers, Jawans and officers, have lost their lives?
No one should lose their life in the world in such situations. It could be an Indian, it could be Pakistani, it could be Sudanese or whosoever. I'm against it. Because if an innocent person is killed, it seems that the God is crying. The tears come from the eyes of God. I am a God believer. So for me, it is something which I cannot tolerate anywhere in the world. But as far as India and Pakistan is concerned, I always believed and worked in both countries as well as in other 140 countries. And my starting points are always children. Let us begin with the children. Let us begin with the children to educate them, to give them good future, and try to build good sense of responsibility and partnership for children. And peace is not something which is an individualistic thing. Peace is not something which is just a political negotiation, or peace is not just to be preached in temples and mosques. Peace is a fundamental human right of every single child. And every single Pakistani child, every single Indian child has a right to peace. And that's why I have been advocating for a campaign, a movement, what we call the Peace for Children and Children for Peace. Means we have to create an environment together where no children is born and grow in the situation and circumstances of violence and abuse and exploitation. They must grow in peace. But on the other hand, we have to engage children and youth all across the world. We have to harness the youth power across the world for peace. And that is possible. So my symbolism is a little bit different. When Malala got this award, I hope that it will help in harnessing the youth power and hope for the purpose of peace.
And let that be the last word. Thank you so much, Mr. Satyarthi. Congratulations. And this is a moment of pride and joy for all our viewers and also us at NDTV. Thank you.